So far, I'm happy to introduce our next panel, NFTs for Fintechs, from asset class to the machinery of ownership. This insightful panel will discuss how NFTs can become a game changer and how financial systems work. Please welcome our moderator, Tom Higgins, CEO at Goldie and CryptoSwitch. We'll introduce the panel now.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much, everybody, for coming to our panel. And anyone who can hear me out there, come in the room. There's lots of spare seats. It's going to be very interesting because we're talking about NFTs. And I was thinking when I was walking around downstairs that there are, you could probably divide the room into three people. There's people who, maybe it's not a third of the room, who know what an NFT is. Then there's probably half of the people who pretend to know what an NFT is. And then there's quite a few people who don't know what an NFT is. So I thought I'd start with just a little bit of sort of the mechanics of what an NFT is. So it's a non-fungible token. So that's, I think, is a ridiculous term that was actually come about because it sounds like such a weird technical thing. But all it really is a token to say you own this particular thing. So rather than a fungible token, which is like a Bitcoin, where any Bitcoin is the same as any other Bitcoin, a non-fungible token is tied to something that is specific, like a painting or a piece of music or a piece of art or something like that. And that one token is tied to that one thing. And that's the difference. Now, it lives on a blockchain, so it's transacted on a blockchain in the same way as a cryptocurrency is. But there, it's quite a different thing. It is not a speculative product. It's treated quite differently. So the variety of people that we've got on the panel is not brokers. It's a different sort of world, different sort of people that are involved. And so I thought I'd start with that. And what we're going to cover it. So we're going to look at what is an NFT. So a panel are going to help educate us more on that. Who uses them? How do you create them and store them in a safe way? How do you buy and sell them? I call it trade, but it's really buying and selling like you would buy a picture or a piece of art or something. And how can FX and crypto brokers get involved, or can they get involved in the same way? Is it a tradable product? Is there a derivative or something like that you could use? I just wanted to start with an anecdote. Years and years ago, when I had hair that wasn't grey and was more of it, I was working for the London Clearing House, and one of the projects that they were undertaking there was for the London Metal Exchange, because the London Metal Exchange has all of these vaults where they store big pieces of metal. And the way that you know which piece of metal you own is by a warrant card. So it was a piece of paper that said on it who owned that piece of metal. And so if you wanted to trade it, you would just cross that out and put someone else's name on it. And they had a real problem one day when they came to see London Clearing House and said, could you build something for us? Because rats have got into the vaults and they've eaten all the warrant cards. So we don't know who owns which piece of metal anymore because rats will eat paper. So they'd eaten all the paper trail, which it sounded like, it's not real, but it actually was. And so that was probably the first sort of token that I'd seen. It was a sort of mix between fungible and non-fungible because it was your actual piece of metal. I guess you could say it was non-fungible, but they were tradable in the way a fungible token could be. But it was interesting, and they produced, or I was a technologist then, built a system to actually to manage these warrants so that you could electronically know who knew who owned which piece of metal, rather than the ones that the rats could eat. And that was the sort of beginning of that. And that was quite interesting, long before any of this sort of came about. So that's just a little anecdote about that. So I wanted to introduce our panel. So we've got Simon here from Archax, and then we've got Selin from Polarys, and then we've got Udi from Leverate, and then we've got Vince from Opis. And if they could introduce themselves and just a little bit about their businesses and who they are and how they've started on this journey, just for a minute or so each, that would be great. So Simon, would you like to start?
Great. Thanks, Tom, and great to be here today. Simon Barnby from Archax. I mean, my background is I've worked in traditional capital markets all my career, so I come from that kind of regulated institutional world. But several years ago, kind of saw the potential of blockchain and tokenization, saw what was being pioneered in the crypto space, and that's really where Archax came about. And Archax is a fully FCA-regulated exchange, broker, and custodian for digital assets. So we cover everything from cryptocurrencies through to NFTs and everything in between. And really, the Archax is designed to be a bit of a bridge between the cool crypto world and the regulated institutional traditional space.
Thank you. I'm Selin. The first year of my career, I was a lawyer in banking and finance. Very exciting till a point where I decided to move to Singapore and join BCG Fintech arm where we basically help financial institutions in the acquisition and the partnership of different type of fintechs. The way we were doing that is also by creating a software that were enabling people to do basic due diligence around the kind of fintech they could acquire. So working on that, I had the opportunity to work also on a lot of blockchain-based projects where I had to convince financial institutions that adopting blockchain was a good thing for business and in different kind of use cases. At some point, this led me to also take the leap and to decide to build my own company with my two co-founders. We founded Polarys. Polarys is a European compliant platform that offers brands the opportunity to transform their loyalty and reward program through NFTs. So we basically help traditional brands to onboard into Web3 through NFTs.
So my name is Udi Algrassi. I'm a traditional finance veteran. From 2016, I started dealing with cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, and since then I did several crypto exchanges, some NFT platforms, and advisory for some projects and companies.
And my name is Vince Howard. I probably encompass all three of the audiences you mentioned are here today, in that I've come from a non-crypto background. I've spent many years in asset management, moved into consulting, started to understand and explore blockchain a little bit better, and then moved to a crypto exchange called Swissborg. I now work for Opis Group, which is a British blockchain technology company. We specialize in creating ways for people to actively and passively earn cryptocurrencies and tokens through Opis Cloud, one of our green technology businesses, and Opis, which is a play-to-earn crypto game, which I'll explain a bit more later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So you can see we've got a really broad spectrum across here. There's some grey-haired people and then some new, younger, fresher people who are bringing interesting ideas in. So I wanted to start with this really difficult term, Web3, which I think is it means so many different things to different people. So I thought if the panel could help explain what Web3 is, that would be great. So I'm not sure who wants to pick that. Any of you? Vince,
you're all looking at me. So, so Web3 is the evolution of the web. We're all familiar with the first version of the internet. I think most of us are old enough to remember going onto the BBC and other websites where we would just read information. In my instance, that was in college and being really excited to have an email address for the first time, excite.com. I don't think they exist anymore. And secondly, social media. So people like Mark Zuckerberg were all familiar in the university culture in America and building of social media, which allowed people like influencers that we see on YouTube and Instagram to generate their own content. So we all here can upload pictures, we can upload content to the internet and partake in that conversation. But for the most part, that content is centrally owned by people like Facebook, Amazon, and so on. Web3 is a decentralized evolution of the internet. So rather than an individual large tech company owning all the data and all the infrastructure, it is distributed amongst people on the network. So Web3 in its best incarceration, in a sort of utopia, we will all own our own data, we will all own our digital assets like NFTs, like cryptocurrencies, and we'll be able to trade that with one another and benefit from the upside of that. In a Web2 world, we are only getting a small slice of the pie. One of the really good examples of that, I think, is using the music industry. We all understand how artists 10, 15, 20 years ago would sign over all of their rights to a record company. Whatever they sold, whatever they did, whatever they gigged would go to that record company, and they would get a little bit of that back. In a decentralized version of that, or Web3, they would still own their rights to their material. They would get the larger chunk of that, and they would distribute that amongst people who want to buy. So it would be a direct relationship with their fans. Crypto and Web3 promises to restore that direct relationship, a little bit like peer-to-peer, as some of you may be aware, when we had the days of torrents and downloading. I'm sure some of you can improve on that definition.
I think it would be interesting to look at how NFTs play a part in Web3 because they are integral to it, but it's not obvious to everybody how, you know, why you would have an NFT, what its point is in the world of Web3, and also looking at the metaverse and Web3 games, how that all fits together. So, Selin, maybe you could enlighten us on that.
Yeah, so I think that NFTs here are a good proof of ownership that can be vehicled into the different parts, whether we speak about metaverse, whether we speak about Web3 in general. Having an NFT enables you to enter any platform with a single point of entrance. Imagine that as a user, you can have one NFT that enables you to enter any website without having the need of signing in, creating a new user profile, and so on. So the idea here is really to facilitate user journey into the web through NFTs.
So does this allow us to own our own KYC in terms that the brokers would know? So at the moment, if I want to open an account with 10 brokers, I would have to, I don't know why I would, but if I did want to, I would have to provide all my documentation 10 times, which always seems a little bit silly, really, because it's the same stuff. Would that allow me to own my own KYC on a blockchain and then pass that to other people so they just have then permissioned access to it?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, in the financial markets world, that's certainly the case. I mean, at the moment, you know, you do have this ridiculous thing where you have to do KYC, AML time after time after time. Now, that is changing a bit, and you know, you do now have organisations able to share that, so you kind of know if they've passed that compliance with one organisation, they can move to another. So that is improving a bit. But I think this whole idea of zero knowledge proof, whereby you don't have to know anything about that person, but you do know that they're valid and you can work with them and stuff. So they've gone through some kind of testing process, so they're kind of credible, if you like, but you don't have to force them to go through the same thing again.
Could you explain a little bit more about zero knowledge proof? Because it's talked about a lot in pure play crypto, but at this conference I haven't heard it mentioned at all.
Well, I mean, it's literally, you know, what it says is, you know, it's a mechanism by way that you don't need to know who that person is necessarily. You don't even have to know that much about them, although you might want to know some of it, and they might be happy to give it to you. But you do know that they have been through a process somewhere, a trusted process somewhere, to meet the criteria that you need. So it's kind of, you know, being able to interact with people without having to force them to go through an onerous sort of onboarding process.
Like FTX did.
Well, there's always people that bend the truth and do things the wrong way, but yeah.
Yeah, Udi, how are you seeing this employed in Leverate, in this type of where customers own their own KYC?
At the moment, we don't have any solution for client KYC management with NFTs or any other way. We still use the same traditional way of uploading document, reviewing, and so on. But I think for now we are offering on one of the platforms on Cyrix a feed for NFTs prices, so you can actually trade that or at least use it as an ETF or a basket or whatever you want to call that. But I think for me the NFTs is a way for us as users to control our information, regardless if it's our private information or is it something that we created. We can control that and we can spread that and get some kind of a dividend interest and make sure that the data that we created will generate some kind of profit for us later on, or even to control it on a KYC point of view. So we can close the session with that company that we don't want to be part of anymore, or we can use the NFTs as a way for income if we create something and so on.
Thank you very much. If we could move on to Web3 games now. I am not a gamer. My eldest son is an avid gamer, and I don't think he does anything else at all. He told me yesterday, he said, I've got some really, really good news. And I thought maybe he's actually working in his degree. And he said, no, I found a new game that I can spend a lot of time playing and shooting things. But he doesn't do the Web3 games. But at Token 49, that was a really conference, pure play crypto conference. It was a really big focus on gaming. And NFTs are very key in Web3 gaming. And I wanted to ask the panel about how the concepts of things you can buy in one game and then store as an NFT can move between games. So you own something that is not specifically tied to the game but can be moved around. Is that now happening, or is that something that is coming?
Yeah, it's absolutely happening. One of the benefits of gaming. I mean, I'm also not a gamer, but we work in a gaming company. I know there's a problem there. But the main issue, or the main reason why I think gaming is an interesting one for NFTs and ownership, is that it gives the ability for us to test a lot of the concepts that we'll see moved into financial services, into property management and ownership as well. Gaming is a good test bed for that. To your point, instead of everything being siloed, we've got interoperability now, where your efforts in one game can reward you elsewhere. You can trade and tokenize the time, basically. You spend 10 hours getting a very unique item within a game. You can sell that item and trade elsewhere, or with some games and some protocols, you can swap between games. So it's really about tokenizing people's work and efforts and making the ownership and transfer of those assets even easier to do, which I think gaming's doing a pretty good job at. The other thing that I find really interesting is there are over 3 billion gamers in the world. So as a key to adoption, it may not be the way that people of our generation are interested in NFTs or gaming at all, but the next generation, I think it will be very normal, very run-of-the-mill for them to own digital assets, to own cryptocurrency, and to expect that sort of really frictionless trade as a service going forward.
I was just going to add to that. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think it's one of the beauties of new technology. You have blockchain technology, concepts like tokenization, interoperability, as you said, and Web3 too. And what these technologies are allowing is allowing people to innovate. And once you can innovate, you can do new and different things. And you see it in kind of all walks of life. You kind of see what happened in the music industry, where we used to buy vinyl, then CDs, then we downloaded music. Now we stream it. Music stays the same, but the way we engage with it, the way we consume it, is completely different. And that's what this is doing now to the gaming industry, and it's what it will do to financial services too.
Yeah, thank you. I actually met someone it was at the House of Lords, and they were having a talk about the crypto industry, which is, you wouldn't think that the House of Lords would even know what crypto was, but they appeared to. And there was an interesting chap I was talking to who'd set up a company for content creators, because he said that content creators pay an enormous amount of their revenue to YouTube or whoever is hosting it, and he said it might be sort of 60-70% of what they earn goes to them. Whereas what should be happening is they should be able to publish their content, and through something like a smart contract, they would be guaranteed that every time that was shared, they would receive some money, and they would get the most of it, rather than it going to somebody like YouTube. I thought it was quite interesting when, Selin, you were talking about rewards, how that... Is that the same sort of thing where you can take rewards from one platform to another or one website to another, could be happening, as Vince was explaining, in Web3 gaming?
I would say that for rewards, what is really interesting and innovative with NFT is two things. First, the traceability, so the transparency. You see where your assets are, you see where your rewards are granted to which people, to your loyal customer, and so on. The second one, and this particularly will speak to every brand today, is a generation of a new source of revenue. So if you think about it, every rewards that are being given, if they are tradable, if they have the capacity to be traded, it means that each time they are traded, the brand can receive royalties. So it means that if you're imagining, and I would compare that to tickets rather than reward, but it's the same logic. If you imagine tickets for football, imagine the number of tickets that are on the market that we don't see anymore, that are sold at amazing prices, right? And clubs don't see the money of it. With NFTs, if they use NFT to do that, they will be, first of all, be able to trace, so to see what is the engagement of their customers, and second, they will be able to have a new source of revenue. So I think these two capabilities in the reward industry are really, revolutionizing, the space from that perspective.
So like Ticketmaster, where you can resell on the Ticketmaster app, but you can only resell on their app because they don't want the touts to make too much money on other apps and rip people off. So you're saying you could use an NFT on a blockchain to be able to make sure that that is transacted correctly, not overpriced, and some money goes back to the right person.
Yeah, and I believe that the fact that with your wallet you can airdrop also rewards gives the opportunity to also, all the rewards that you receive via email that you don't look at, you probably miss them. With NFTs, you can make sure that in your wallet, your reward will be there, and as soon as you want to activate it, your wallet would be activated and recognize the reward. So in a way, for a consumer, it's a win situation when they really take advantage of rewards that are given by brands.
So if we look at, I don't know, Sainsbury's or something, and you have a Nectar card where you get points, and you can use it at various select places, is the idea of rewards on NFTs that would then go to your own NFT you could use in Waitrose or anywhere that was part of it?
I think indeed it's the vision. At least we have this vision at Polarys where we think that NFTs in the context of reward can really revolutionize the PFM industry. So more and more financial institutions are looking at PFM, so personal finance management solutions, because obviously in a period of crisis as we have now and as we had for the couple of years now, people are looking to save money, to have discounts, and to manage better their budget. So in that sense, banks and financial institutions in general are well placed to help individuals on that respect. And NFT can be used as a vehicle in that sense. If you imagine a card where you would have campaigns that are showcased on the card, and each time you go to a store, you have tokens that are accumulated on your card, and then it's a bit like your Waitrose or your Sainsbury card, right, where you have points. The idea here is that you would be able to bundle many brands into one loyalty card, for example.
So that's really interesting. And one of the areas that has obviously been in the news is all about security and how safe is this world. And there's been lots of DeFi hacks. There's now been lots of centralized stuff going on. So are the wallets that people are keeping things in, MetaMask and things like that, are they safe? Or are there better ways that we can store the wallets that hold our very valuable NFTs?
I think first thing to say is that it's not your keys, it's not your money. So keep your cryptocurrencies, NFTs, or whatever you hold in your own offline wallet in order to make sure that you are not damaged by the stuff that is happening in the industry. Security-wise, I think the protocols themselves are highly secured, but the procedures and manuals that companies are using in order to support those blockchain finance instruments are lacking. And I think this is the problem. The problem doesn't come from the NFT technology. It's coming from the back office operation. It's coming from bad actors in the market that are damaging the industry and the client themselves. So.
Yeah, I was just going to add that a MetaMask wallet or a hardware wallet or whatever can be very secure, but it's quite a lot of hassle to set one up, and you have to know it's quite if you've never done it before, it's quite complicated, and if you're an institution, it's even more difficult. How do you get your head around doing that? Which is why custody services, and this isn't a plug for Archax, or it is what we do, but custody services are a solution to that. But then you look at FTX, for example. They had a custody service, and a lot of people held their coins there, and obviously that the money was, or the coins were lent out elsewhere, and people have lost everything. So I think you then have to look at the level of custody that's being offered in a regulated custodian where the custody service is fully segregated from the exchange, it's insolvency remote, where there's always one-to-one backing between what you own and what's in custody for you is really important. So I think there's been lots of shortcuts taken in the crypto world, but some of the more sort of regulated institutional approaches that are coming into that world now will help make it a safer place to be, particularly for institutions.
I was going to also add to that. As bad as it is and a bitter pill to swallow, I think a lot of these things need to happen. Regulation can only keep up with innovation once the innovation happens and the mistakes happens, and we correct those and make sure they don't happen again. I think for the next generation that will use these services, it's important that the lessons are learned. Look at aviation and the way things happen there. The accidents happen. They review why they happen, when they happen, and what were the causes, and then they try to improve travel safety for all of us in the future. So I do hope incidents like this improve security, improve protocols, and improve the regulation that we'll see coming tomorrow, hopefully. Sooner the better, really.
Yeah, and it does take time for the regulators to catch up and understand, and there's always the danger that they stifle innovation. But the other thing that can be done in the short term is, well, okay, Bitcoin is regulated in some places, but in the UK it's not. So, crypto spots are unregulated here, but that doesn't mean you can't take a regulated approach and impose, the way other securities are regulated onto that and do it that way. So there are ways, we don't have to wait for the regulators to catch up. As an industry, we can do things about it.
I think we are looking at this from our point of view as traditional finance, coming with all the manual procedures, back office operation, the segregation between client funds and the expenses, off-sheet, in-sheet, and stuff like that. But I think most of the people that are doing huge crypto project now are not coming from that industry, and they are lacking that knowledge and experience. And this is what is causing a lot of the issues and a lot of the problems until regulators will come into effect yesterday, as you ask.
Yeah, more particularly on NFT, because we speak about regulation that are existing for fungible assets. So indeed, in Europe, in the UK, there are regulations being taken to actually regulate and license virtual asset providers. But NFT remains, at the moment, excluded from the scope. Which is kind of surprising, given the fact that, as you can see on the different use cases we presented today, NFT in some case should be considered as a financial instrument and therefore included in the regulation. So today, the fact that Europe, for example, still do not include NFT into the MiCA regulation is still, I think, a problem that could appear. What the stand that companies can take is being regulated before time. It costs money, it's true, but at least you get ready and you give confidence to a sector that is speaking that language, right? If you go to traditional brands and say, okay, I'm not regulated, I don't care about it, and to be completely honest, I prefer to take advantage of it, I don't think this is the way we are going to make the sector and the industry healthy. Sorry.
It's an interesting comparison that Vince made as well, actually, with the airline industry, because I read a book about safety in the airline industry a little while ago, and when it started, passenger flights, it was extremely dangerous, and it was more dangerous than driving. Today, you are much more likely to have an accident putting your trousers on statistically in the morning than actually flying anywhere in the world. So just be very careful when you put your trousers on in the morning. I'd like to sort of start moving around more to how the traditional brokers, the traditional financial world, can start accessing the NFTs, because this was part of our challenge on this talk, was to how to take the NFT world, which is a very different world, and how it can be used in the traditional financial space. So one of the areas that interests me, and I think it is an interesting area, is fractionalization of NFTs. And what I mean by that is, if you buy a painting, you buy a Damien Hirst and you paid $5 million for it, and you can't fractionalize it. You can only sell that painting once for, well, I don't know, hopefully more. But what if you could, and you can, fractionalize it, so you can break it down into tiny little pieces, and so other people can then have exposure to that asset's price going up and down, and they can actually then trade those. Could you then put that in an ETF, in a basket with other ones, and then you create a derivative products on that? How could can you see that happening, and is it happening now?
Yeah, I think a wrap token is something that we saw previously in different projects, especially with stablecoins. And we see that today with NFTs, some of them which are highly expensive, and people like to democratize them and spread the ownership, so they can wrap that token and create sub-tokens for that specific non-fungible token. This is already exist, and we see that in the industry. I think later on we will see assets that are being spread and being part of ETFs and other financial instruments because of the scarcity and the price. I think this is what will push the NFTs to become much brighter financial instrument.
I think that tokenization in general, and I'll go back to the gaming example, is a really good one. We already happens with the way people can buy property now. You can buy a very small percentage of property. the programmable element that NFTs bring just means that I think it removes a lot of the back office stuff and a lot of the administration, and probably brings the cost down long term as well. So going back to the permissionless part, you're not depending on a third party company to make sure they distribute the profits equally and make sure they're doing things in an above board way. With an NFT, it can all be programmed and happen automatically. Ultimately, that tokenization element for me is about democratizing the access to wealth, assets, to more individuals, and meaning that the barrier to entry hopefully is lowered when the technology works in the way that it should.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because if you look up the sort of the strict definition of an NFT, I think it says it can't be fractionalized. But maybe that's the NFT maximalists at the start. But of course, you can wrap anything and tokenize anything and fractionalize it, so you can. But I think it's really interesting. And once you do fractionalize things, and once you do have them in token form, there's then all sorts of other things, all sorts of other benefits. I mean, it's a more efficient way to handle things. You could do things like maybe you could lend them out or borrow against them in the DeFi world. You know, once you've got it in token form, it unlocks all sorts of other capabilities. If it's an asset where there's some kind of income distribution, maybe like rental property or something, you know, you can send that out with a stable coin, maybe directly to people's wallets. So token form.
So could you use a picture as collateral on an exchange for trading something else?
Well, theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, yes, but I don't see that happening in the upcoming future because of custodian services and risk management and stuff like that around the art pieces themselves.
I was on a panel maybe 5 years ago, and somebody said, do you see people loaning against their, cryptocurrency and tokens? And people were like, no, it's never going to happen. So I say, you might be right, but the pace of innovation is so quick, who knows, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen in the space, I don't think. But I do think adoption and innovation will increase. As Simon mentioned earlier, one breakthrough unlocks another. People get ideas and inspired by what's happening in the market. And certainly when I meet innovators and business leaders like yourselves, I always learn of something new that people are doing. So I think the potential is there, absolutely.
Selin.
Yeah, I think that there are two use cases. There are many use cases, but two use cases that we hear a lot about when we talk about fractionalized NFT. First of all, it's real estate. We talked about democratization of investment. If you look at the generation that is coming out of university now, how many people can buy an apartment as our parent could, or the parent of our parent could, right? So if you imagine an investment that is stable as the one from real estate, and that you can fractionalize it, you are indeed democratizing the investment part. The other part I wanted to underline is also the way you can split financing. So if you look at what happened during COVID, a lot of financial institutions were providing they financing to big corporate multinationals. And what happened is that the deep tier of the supply chain was actually disrupted by COVID. So many banks have investigated to partner with blockchain company in order to split financing, meaning you give the financing to the multinational, and then with a proof of financing with the NFT, you can basically split your financing through the whole chain and therefore identify your deep tier supply chain. So the capabilities and the way NFT can be leveraged in that sense is again, I use the word revolutionary a lot, but I think that those traceability and interoperability that blockchain gives really removes a lot of hurdle in the financial services.
It's interesting. I think from hearing everything you've been talking about NFTs, blockchain came about and it was a really clever idea, but it was one of those things that you didn't really have an application for it. It was just a really clever idea. And NFTs, I think, is that really clever application of it so it can be used. And a parallel to this is when the laser was invented, they absolutely had no idea what they were going to do with it. And they just thought, this is just really clever technology, but we're not sure what we're going to do with it. And now everything has a laser in it. Absolutely everything. It's one of the most fundamental components in so many things. And I think NFTs seem to be doing the same thing. How, if you can all think about this, how can traditional brokers today who are trading FX and CFD products, how can they get involved in adding this as an asset class? So not Bitcoin, I'm not talking about as a cryptocurrency, but as an NFT in some form, either as a wrapped or as a pure NFT. How can they get involved? What would you tell them today? So if a broker came up to you and said, this sounds exciting, what should I do? So maybe if we all have a go at this. So Vince, if you start.
Tough one for me. Just to be honest, I'm not an expert in it. What I will say is that when we looked at, I used to work in open banking, and what was apparent about the open banking movement is people recognizing the importance of their own data, especially financial data, by allowing third parties and other applications to access the data that your bank accounts hold, or traditional banks at least. It could open another world of services and goods to you. What I would say in terms of getting access and brokers is events like this, where you're seeing Web 2 and Web 3 coming together, are a really good place to start. There's a lot of innovation, as I mentioned. There's lots of companies doing lots of really innovative and interesting things. I think also looking at consultancy firms, the Big Four and beyond, they have a lot of really interesting units that are looking at how we can integrate NFT, blockchain technology into trading, into brokering. So that's always a good place to start in terms of doing research as well.
I think for me, the traditional brokers' life are going to change in the upcoming years, and NFT is going to be an important part of it. Starting from onboarding and KYC, going down to rewards, asset class, and almost everything that we do in the traditional finance industry is going to change and be based on data verification that is going to be represented by NFTs. So as for today, there's not a lot of use cases in the traditional industry, but we are seeing this developing and coming into the industry, like additional price feed for NFTs, even self-generated NFTs that are being traded on traditional financial systems, and so on. So,
thank you.
Yeah, on the risk of repeating myself, I also think that I also think that that NFT would be used as, always this kind of certificate of ownership, and in any kind of variation of certificate of ownership in the journey of the broker, we will see those NFT maybe popping up. It's still in exploration. I'm also not specializing into that, so I won't deep dive too much. But I would say that where there is a need for traceability, transparency, a proof of ownership, and things like that, they might be a case for NFT. And I say might because I think indeed we might need to underline that too. Using blockchain for the sake of using blockchain is not good, and I think that everyone is saying that, but it's one thing to say it and apply it, think always about what is currently existing, what can be improved, and even if there is a way to do a combination between what is existing with cloud and other technology and blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, the two answers to that question, I guess, really. I think first, this is just a new technology, so it's nothing to be scared of. It's just a new, more efficient technology, a new way of doing things. And I think a success of a technology is when we stop talking about it. I mean, it's like in the early days of the internet with, email, and we worried about TCP/IP and what email protocol we were using. Now you just send an email without thinking about it. And the same will happen with these new technologies too. I think the second thing is it's all about the assets that the NFTs represent. So the way brokers will get involved is when they start to be used to represent assets that are interesting to them, and then it's just a matter of adopting a new technology.
So there's quite a gap, it sounds like, between the NFT world and the traditional financial world, but the two need to close because of the advantage of this technology. And the zero knowledge proof seems to be one that is quite obvious that is going to happen earlier. So the KYC stuff, because that has real benefits to brokers. Coming on earlier. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, in our sort of closing time, is we're talking about putting things on the blockchain. There isn't one blockchain. There's lots of blockchains, and there's lots of technologies, and I'm not sure people are always aware that the blockchain you buy your Ether on is not the same as the blockchain you buy your Bitcoin on, and it's probably not the same as the one in your Web3 game that you store your NFT on. Where are these blockchains that people are going to be using in the NFTs we've been talking about? Are they private ones? Is there going to be a standard common one that you all share? Or how will that work?
You keep bullying me,
Does
guys.
anybody know?
It's a very complex question, very complex. What I would say is there will be different flavors for different... I mean, as an example, cloud computing might be a good parallel. There's cloud computing that we may host our images of family holidays or backing up photographs to, but it certainly wouldn't be the same cloud computing solutions HSBC will use for obvious reasons. So there will be centralized versions of blockchains, there will be decentralized versions. One really good quote that I like is that a lot of innovation happens on decentralized blockchains, whereas some stability and mass adoption often happen on more centralized blockchains. That's where you're probably going to get a bit more stability, a bit more regulation. But again, it's a very, very broad question. There'll be lots of different answers in between that as well. There are blockchains like Ethereum, which we're all aware of, who basically is like an operating system, a bit like Windows or a bit like iOS. It gives people, coders, companies the ability to program and make lots of different applications on that blockchain. And there are more closed systems. There's Bitcoin as well. So I think it will just vary on what people are trying to achieve. But like Simon said, and I love that example, it's like HTTPS. Nobody cares about it. People will just look for, how is this making my life easier? What type of protocol it uses will be relevant to most.
And there are people developing layers now that sit above the blockchain and they're interoperable with all of them. So, that technology will solve it at some point.
So you don't need to. So if you were using something above that, you wouldn't need to worry about where all these different blockchains live. So a bit like on the internet where I talk to an IP address and I don't know where it is, and I don't really have to worry about the fact that it's getting there, and it's just amazing really that it can work out how to get across the world to get there. It just takes care of it, and that's the infrastructural layer. So that will come in place. And is there one blockchain technology that is dominating, like Ethereum or Solana or one of these?
I think Ethereum at the moment is one of the most dominant protocols to be used with smart contracts and all the developments they did and patches they add allows the programmers to use Ethereum in a very strong and robust way to facilitate whatever services they need. On top of that, there is always competition like Solana and other ADA and so many other more that were created, and they have their own use cases for specific uses at the moment. So, but I think Ethereum at the moment is like the leading one by far.
Thank you. Simon, did you have a comment?
No, I agree.
We've got a minute and a half left. So has anybody got any questions they want to ask this panel who are experts in this stuff? So yes, I think a mic is coming.
Thank you. Sorry. Is there a good use case using NFT to represent and back without any, I would say, compromise in terms of breaking the trust system?
Yeah, I think there are some great use cases for NFTs for very traditional things. I mean, if you've bought or sold a property, you'll know how manual and what a nightmare it is, and land registry, it's all paper-based and everything else. Having that in token form on a blockchain where you have an NFT to represent your house or apartment or whatever, I think is a fantastic use case. There's things like our national insurance cards. You have a unique number that is assigned to you when you're working. Another thing, that could be an NFT, and then you get all the benefits and efficiencies of being in that token world as well. So I think there's all sorts of, there's all sorts of new and exciting things being put out with NFTs, but it has all sorts of use cases in the TradFi world.
I was going to say that another really good one, slightly different, would be around data, and I think the NHS could badly benefit from it. Imagine us having an NFT that represented your health data, and you have the keys, and you give access to your GP, you give access to emergency services, but fundamentally the NHS focus on what to do with the data, us as individuals focus on what we want that data to be used for.
I can see that also in logistics. We are seeing a reduce of paperwork, and NFT is representing, instead of bill of lading and shipment documents and stuff like that, the manufacturer is closing the container with a seal and creating NFT around that, and then you can trace that NFT during its journey to the destination and make sure that what you are getting is the right commodities that you bought. So this is already existing and is part of the logistic world.
Another example is university diplomas. You can always, whenever you travel for work or anything, you always have an NFT without having the needs to translate your diploma in the countries you are moving to, for example.
We've run out of time now, but thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and thank you to the panel for your expert views. I have learnt so much in this journey of looking into this and also listening to you. I find NFTs absolutely fascinating, and all the things that you're doing in your business are going to change. It's going to change the world. It's really, really interesting. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody.